Maryland in 2025 will have to depend on its defense.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us all part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Maryland's defense is going to be pivotal, and I think will determine Maryland's season this upcoming year in the 2025 season for the Terps. A lot of people say defense wins championships, and I have not been a firm believer in that in today's football landscape. When you look at the NFL, when you look at college, I've always been the one to say defense wins games. Offense actually wins championships, but you guys know the original quote that defense wins championships. But I think it all kind of depends on, when you really get into it, is how your team is constructed. And when you look at this Maryland football team, when you look at how this team is on paper, when you look at what our strengths are going into the year, I think that this team is going to have to depend on its defense for wins. I really believe that the defense is going to be pivotal for Maryland to get to where we want to be, get to a bowl game, get to hopefully 6-7 wins, hopefully be in a decent spot in the Big Ten, have a better year than what we had last year. I think Maryland has to rely on its defense. I think last year we really needed our defense to step up the entire year, but it just never happened. If you looked at how other teams played against us last year, they can really do whatever they wanted, especially in Big Ten play against our defense. We gave up 42 points against Indiana. We gave up 37 to Northwestern. We gave up 28 to USC in a game that we won. We gave up 48 to Minnesota, 38 to Oregon. We gave up 31 to Rutgers, 29 to Iowa, 44 to Penn State. There's a reason why we couldn't win in any games last year. There's a reason we only won one Big Ten game last year. It was because the defense stank. The defense was terrible a lot of the year. I think it's the biggest reason why we were bad last year. I think it's the biggest reason why we just couldn't get things figured out last year. Excuse me. But this year in 2025, there's been a lot of talk about the offense. Everyone's going to talk about the quarterback. Everyone's going to talk about, what receivers do we get to throw to? What is the offense line? Everyone wants to know about the offensive things. But I'm here to tell you, a lot of it's going to come down to how this defense performs in 2025, especially with how our schedule is positioned, especially with the games we play. It's not like we're going against juggernaut on the offensive side or against really good offenses, and we're like, well, there's not much we can do about Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Julian Sayin or Drew Aller and Nick Singleton and all those transfer receivers that they brought in, or Dante Moore at Oregon, or USC and some of the explosive players they have. It's not like we're playing against those types of teams. We're playing against teams where we have a chance to really play at a pretty decent level when it comes to the defense side of the ball. We have a chance to get the job done on the defensive side of the ball and really put our offense in position to win games. I'll say it out flat. A big reason why I think our defense is pivotal this year is because I don't know how good our offense is going to be. Don't know how good our offense is going to be. It could be solid. It could be bad. There's a lot of inexperience. There's a lot of guys that we're going to be depending on that I just don't know how I feel about them. Don't know if I'm high on them. Don't know if I'm low on them. Don't know how I feel about a lot of players on this Maryland offense. It's a really big question mark. I mean, we love Malik Washington. We think he's going to be a really good player for the Terps. We think he's going to be one of the better freshmen in the Big Ten and have a huge campaign. But at the end of the day, he's a freshman. If you think Malik Washington's going to go into Big Ten play and not need some solid defensive games for the Terps to be able to get over their win total or to get to a bowl game. However you want to talk about success for the Terps, if you think that doesn't have to happen, if you think that Maryland doesn't have to play good defense for Malik Washington to win games, you're wrong. Malik Washington can have really high-end games, but there's going to be some lows for the kid. There's going to be some lows, just like there were lows last year for Billy Edwards, and he's going to be a better player than Billy Edwards. I think we all believe that. I think we have a pretty good belief that that's going to happen with Malik Washington. But there are going to be games where the offense probably ain't going to look great under a freshman quarterback in the Big Ten. That's just what it is. I don't know what freshman is going to look good every single game in the Big Ten. That just doesn't happen, and there's a reason not too many of them play. And so if you have a freshman quarterback running out there, I don't care how good he is, you're going to have to play some good defense if you want to win games. You are. You're going to have to play some good defense if you want to win games. And when you look at the Terps, you got to say Malik Washington, I think, is going to be the starter. You're going to have to play some solid defense to win games, and our offense might be behind a little bit. And then when you just look at this overall landscape of the Terps offense, there's still a lot of question marks. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's question marks on the defense side of things, but when you start with the most important position and you start with the quarterback starting a freshman, and then you look around him, it's a lot of new pieces. You feel solid, hopefully, about the offensive line getting back to being a pretty solid unit. You feel better about that. But what about the receiving room? It's a lot of new people, and you just don't know how it's going to end up being. We like Octavian Smith, but he hasn't proven he's a one yet. We like Jaleel Farouk, but he's coming off of injury. We like Caleb Webb, but he hasn't done anything yet at Tennessee. Dorian Fleming, we feel high about, but he hasn't done that much in the Big Ten. Nolan Ray hasn't proven he can be a number one back. It's a whole lot of, we just don't know. Our offensive line hasn't proven that they're good, and a lot of guys are coming back. We bring in some transfers. Nobody on this offense. There's not a single guy in this offense that's coming back that you're like, that guy feels like he's going to be really good. So there is pretty high chance, I would say, it's about 90% or 95% chance that there's probably 5-6 games where the offense may not look awesome, or the offense may play decent, but they're not going to put up 35 points, and you're going to need your defense to win the game. And I think Maryland's defense has a lot of same question marks, but there's more experience over there. There's more people that have played college football, and you're not being led by a freshman that I think when you look at the team, you're like, okay, so this Maryland defense is going to need to win Maryland games this year. It's just what it is. We're going to need our defense to put up big performances and to win games. And I think Maryland has to depend on its defense. I think there's a lot of interesting pieces, but I think there's just more experience when you look at it. I think there's a lot of defensive linemen that we feel good about. We brought in a lot of transfers at the defensive tackle spot that hopefully can rotate in and out and stop the run. There's some interesting pass rushers. I think the linebacking core, Michael Harris, I think can be good. I think Daniel Wingate's arguably our best player. At the secondary, I think Dante Joyner, Jamar Glasker, Braden Lee, hopefully all can, Kevin Humes can hold it down. We feel good about our safeties, Jalen Husky, Le'Veon Scruggs. Like, there's a lot of players you feel good about. Trey Reddick at the outside linebacker spot. Like, you feel good about a lot of these different guys. Obviously, there's still question marks, but there is talent there. There's talent on that Maryland defense, and there's talent on the Maryland offense as well, but you're just being led by a freshman QB. So, to me, I think the defense has to win games or help win games, or has to be really big in terms of if we want to get a couple of these Big Ten wins. And remember, Vegas barely thinks we can get 2 Big Ten wins. They basically are win total at 4.5, meaning you'll probably win the first 3 games of your schedule, but after that, you might not win, or you might not win again. You might not win a Big Ten game. They're basically predict us to win about 1.5 games in the Big Ten. Is basically what it sounds like. And to me, if you want to get over that number that Vegas thinks you're at, you're going to have to win some games on defense. And when I say win games on defense, I mean, there's going to have to be games on your schedule where, okay, you play Rutgers on the road November 8th. You got to force them under 21 points or something like that. Like something like that might have to happen. Or you play UCLA on the road and you might have to force them under 28 points or something like that. You know what I mean? Or you play Nebraska October 11th. You might have to look at Dylan Raiola and be like, okay, we have to force him under 24 points. There's going to have to be games, or Billy Edwards, a really good example. We know his game. We know what he's done well at Wisconsin. We're going to have to make sure that we make this game really tough for Billy Edwards. There's going to have to be games where you look at the Terps and you're like, okay, Malik Washington threw for 150 yards and a touchdown and a pick, but the defense bailed him out and we were able to get out of it and they were able to force turnovers and all these different things. I think that has to happen for the Terps to be considered to get to a bowl game. I just don't think the offense has enough experience. Maybe next year we look at the offense as a unit and we're like, okay, that offense can put up numbers. That offense is going to be exciting. But in terms of this year, I like the talent, but by no means do I think this offense can be like a top 5 unit in the Big Ten. I think they could have their struggles. I think they could have their days. I think there could be days that are bad. It's going to be an unlinear path, and that's completely reasonable for having a freshman quarterback under center, having an offensive line that hasn't been great under Mike Locksley. Like, is that going to be great all of a sudden? Having a bunch of unproven receivers, having a running back that played good in spots last year, but he wasn't the starter. He hasn't played a ton. So I think it'll be interesting, but I do think the defense is extremely important for the Terps. I'm going to rank the top-ranked most important games heading into next year for the Terps. My top 3 most important games for Maryland football next year. I think it'll be a little bit of a fun topic, but we'll talk about that next. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, and why not make it more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburn at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchup, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotion and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same game parlay or watching Bet Ryan in the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it easy to feel like you're part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can just bet $5 and get 115 bonus bets if your first bet wins. You can open the FanDuel app, and there's so many different ways to get started and so many different things you can do over at FanDuel. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. So I'm gonna rank the top most important games for Maryland football. I think I'm gonna do about the top 3 most important games for Maryland football. I'm actually going to leave or not do it in order, I should say, because I think getting into the order is really tough. But I want to talk about what I think is the most important game for next season for Maryland football. I already talked about one yesterday in against Wisconsin. I think this Wisconsin game is so important for the Terps for a couple of different reasons. It's your first Big Ten game. Anytime you're playing your first Big Ten game, you're hopefully going into it 3-0 with how Maryland's schedule is currently constructed and kind of how easy we honestly made our non-conference schedule with FAU, Northern Illinois, and Towson. There's no reason to go into that Wisconsin game 3-0. And so obviously Wisconsin's not an easy team to play on the road, but it is one that I think as our first Big Ten game, it'll be a turning point into the year. I think it's extremely important, but it is a game that I think there's storylines that being the first Big Ten game with us playing Billy Edwards. I do think it's a winnable game as well for the Terps, a winnable Big Ten game to get to 4-0 potentially, because I think that it's really interesting. I think we know Billy Edwards as a quarterback. We know what he does well. We're going to have a really good scouting report on him. And Mike Locksley understands Billy Edwards maybe even more than Wisconsin does for as long as Billy Edwards has been at Maryland, as well as Wisconsin could easily overlook us. This is another reason why I think we could win. They play Alabama the week before us, and then they play Michigan the week after us. they could overlook that Maryland game. They could look ahead of it to Michigan, or they could be beat up after that Alabama game. I think Wisconsin is one of the most important games of the season next year. I do think it is very winnable, and I think it's a game that we could win. Another game I think that is a really important game. It's our biggest brand game of the year, and I do think it's important for a couple different reasons. Is playing Michigan November 22nd. It's the second to last game of the season. I think it's a really interesting game playing Michigan. So you obviously have Michigan, but I think this is a freshman quarterback battle. Like who's the guy? Who's the better player? Obviously, you give the edge to Bryce Underwood right now with his talent and some of the tangible types of things that he has in terms of being. That guy's huge. What is he? 6'5", 6'4". Obviously, I love Malik Washington, but there's a reason that kid Bryce Underwood was the number one ranked player in the nation, not just quarterback. But I think it's going to be really interesting when we go head-to-head against Michigan in terms of the freshman quarterback battle, Malik versus Bryce. Who is kind of the owner of the Big Ten? Who's the future of the Big Ten? I'm sure they both are, but who's the better player, really? And I think that's something that is going to be interesting, as well as kind of the greater part of it is we get Michigan at home. I don't know what Michigan's going to be this year. I don't know what to think of Michigan. Like, is this a team that's going to make the college football playoff? Is this a team that is going to be similar to last year where they're like, what is this Michigan team? I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you that it's Maryland's biggest brand game of the year. And when I say brand game, I mean like in terms of the college football brands. You think of Ohio State, you think of Alabama, you think of Georgia, you think of Clemson, you think of Notre Dame, you think of Michigan. And so that's our biggest brand game of the year, arguably our hardest opponent. I think maybe you could say like Illinois is, but I think Michigan's better than Illinois by a little bit for sure. I know people are high in Illinois, but I think it's interesting. We do get that game at home. It's near the end of the schedule. I think we've been waiting for Mike Locksley to get one of those upset games. Could this be the one? And I think I had to put Michigan as one of the more important games of the season. And then the last really important game of the year, the one that I think is going to really put Maryland in a good spot, another opportunity to get a win, is against Rutgers on November 8th. I'm not necessarily saying Rutgers is the best team in the conference. I'm not necessarily saying that this game is going to draw a huge crowd or anything like that. But anytime you get like a really good opportunity to win a game, you have to take advantage of it. And Maryland playing Rutgers is a really awesome opportunity for Maryland to win a game. It is. The Rutgers team, I think, is like, what do we really think about Rutgers? I don't think they're anyone that we're really scared of. I don't think it's anyone that's like a top team in the Big Ten. I don't even know if they're a middle-ish team in the Big Ten, but I feel pretty good about us being able to beat a Rutgers team. I don't know a ton about what they're bringing in, but I do think it's obviously a team definitely that we should be able to win, a team that I think definitely that we're going to have the opportunity to beat. So when you look at the Maryland team, I do think they're going to have the opportunities to beat Rutgers. I know they think they're improved. I know they think they have some good things under Coach Greg, but I do think that we have the upper edge over a team like Rutgers. I know they have some decent players, but it's a game that we could really win. And then some other games that obviously there's other Big Ten games that are important, but I chose those three because Michigan's a brand. Rutgers is our best opportunity to win. And I think Wisconsin, there's just too many storylines for me not to call it one. I think against Dylan Raiola, Nebraska at home is going to be really interesting. Indiana, after getting blown out against them last year, at home is going to be interesting. But honestly, I'm ready to play the games. I'm kind of tired of talking about what game's most interesting, whatever. I'm ready to talk about an opponent. We still got a couple more weeks to go until we really can get into it, but it's August 7th. We're really getting there. We're getting closer and closer to that time of year where we're going to be talking about stuff that matters and stuff that's important for the Terps instead of just talking about the most important games of the year. But all of them are important. I do think so. So that'll be interesting for the Terps. Well, let's talk about some Maryland basketball recruiting next. My thoughts on this new point guard that made Maryland as a top 5 potential school. We'll talk about that next. All right, so Maryland landed in the top 5 for this high-level 2026 point guard. Tre Beamer actually has the same first name as me. I guess Tre's technically my nickname, but I love this kid's game. I love this kid. He's a number 86 overall prospect in the class of 2026. He narrowed his schools down to 5. He is small. He is attending IMG Academy and plays for Team United. And he is small at 6'1", 160 pounds. So he's definitely going to have to add some weight. But what I saw from Tre Beamer in a little highlight session and a couple different things, I'm like, shoot, I like this kid, Tre Beamer. I think he's going to be a really good player for the Terps. I think he could end up really working out for the Terps. I think Tre is definitely someone we have to be high on and look out for. I do think he could end up choosing the Terps. This is another example of a kid that this is a really big thing for not Mike Loxley, Buzz Williams. He has gotten outside of kind of your typical DC, Maryland area. I know this kid is from Martinsville, Virginia, but that's still a little bit more down the road. But yeah, rated 85th ranked nationally on 247 player rating, 96 on 247 composite, number 9 ranked point guard in the class. And so definitely a guy that I'm really high on, and I think that the Terps could end up getting. When you watch him play, he's twitchy, he gets to the rim, he does a lot of different things. And I think what excites me most is how he played last year in the EYBL. I'm sure most of you guys know the EYBL. It's like the Nike circuit team. So it's basically the AAU, like the highest level of AAU basketball that you can play. And so Beamer averaged 19.6 points, 3.0 assists, and 4.2 rebounds per game during the Nike EYBL Session 4, continuing a strong summer on the circuit. One of the national analysts, Eric Bosey, spoke on Beamer in May, and he said, Team United may have fallen in overtime, but nobody could fault the effort of Tre Beamer, ranked number 117 in the class 2026 at the moment. So he clearly moved up from there. Beamer was a terror off the dribble and got his spots whenever he wanted to. He had a few timely jumpers, but what he did more than anything else was put incredible pressure on the defense because of his ability to get to the paint touches and live at the free throw line. He went for 34 points, and with Mississippi State already on the board, he should pick up more high major offers soon. So that was a while ago, but his top 5, like I said, Maryland, USF, Virginia Tech, and BC. So I would like to think in terms of basketball programs that we're top of that list. I don't know exactly what he wants, what he's looking for. I know he's definitely gonna continue to get offers. He's one of those he's one of those guys that keep on rising. Like he got one from, I guess he's already put out his top 5. So I guess in terms of offers, I guess it doesn't matter as much. I know that BC and some of these other schools are probably USF are probably going to, and Virginia Tech are probably going to put a lot into him in terms of him going to their school, because they're not used to getting recruits like this, high level 4 stars. But right now, when you check on the Rivals website, Maryland is 35% prediction to land the kid. So I think we're in pretty good position to get him. And I really like his game. And I think he's going to be a good player for the Terps, and the way he gets to the paint. He just is a little bit small, but that's what's going to happen with some of these high school guys. They have to add weight. They have to get a little bit bigger, and I totally expect him to be able to do that. So I do really like this kid. I think he's good for the Terps, and we'll see what ends up happening. So we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.